Call the meeting to order. Commissioner Ryder, please.
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Open the meeting with public comment. Is there any public comment?
I
Yes,
would
sir.
like to make one if I could, please. My name is Denny Nelson. I'm representing the Three Forks Rural Fire Board. We've got a situation or an issue down with one of the subdivisions down there, specifically Antelope Vista. And what has happened is that the homeowner and the homeowners association and the landowner or homeowner are in a verbal battle, I guess, et cetera, which I understand that portion of it is all their issues. It's not any issues with either the county commissioners or the rural fire district. The concern that the rural fire district has is that he's gone and he's dug a huge hole right up close, and we feel that it's probably into the encroached on the easement off of the road on the access for an emergency access that goes out it'd be the northeast corner of that subdivision. It actually connects, it's a protective exit, emergency exit for fire protection to allow not only homeowners but firefighters, if they're in a wildland firefighter situation, could be trapped down in there and they need that access kept open. His main concern is he's trying to close that road. That's his ultimate goal, is to close that road. And the fire department, the rural fire district, is concerned that that hole that he's dug, although it's on his property, may have encroached in there. And our main concern is that with a heavy snow melt, with a rain issue, with a heavy washing issue, that it's going to come down off of that north slope down across the county road, easement road, and wash out that section of road, which would then make it impassable for people to get in and out. It's a concern that they have at this time. Now, the Rural Fire Board will be meeting May 16th down there. Our rural board meeting is the 16th of May, election of officers, and at that time the rural board is going to discuss it at length. Now, I just finished a conversation with Nicole upstairs, and I asked her if she and also you folks would possibly make an attempt to maybe have one of your road maintenance guys go through, maybe one of your deputies that's in down there. And I know you're inundated with, you know, a lot of people and a lot of issues down on that south end of the district down there, but we'd appreciate it if you could take some observation on it, at least make yourselves aware of it. Nicole said she was going to address it, and then I will also meet with the Rural Fire Board and listen to their discussions on the 16th, and we'll get back in touch with you regarding this.
You said May 16th?
May 16th.
At what time, Denny?
Pardon?
What time?
It'd be 7 o'clock is our regular meeting.
And where do you guys meet?
Down at the fire hall.
What's the name of the road?
You would ask me, and I just drove through it a couple days ago. It's on the map, but I don't have that on the tip of my tongue. I'm sorry, Mike.
Does that exit onto Hilltop Road?
It exits onto Hilltop, right at that corner.
At that corner?
Right at that corner.
Okay.
And I was gonna say it was something View Road, but I'm not sure, Mike, at this point in time. I drove it the other day. Dave Hargrove and I talked about it. I had it in my mind then, but my senior citizen mind escapes me now. So if you folks could, you know, at least file that as an attention-getting situation where we would like to have it investigated and have it taken a look at.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it, ladies and gentlemen. Have a good day.
Thank you, you
Thank
too.
you. Any other public comment?
No.
Okay. Cheryl, you had a question last week, I believe it was, or maybe the week before, about whether or not the Rutherford Health had paid off that loan to the state bank, and that payment has been made, that loan is clear now.
Okay, thanks.
Let's see, I guess we will go to, got two sets of minutes here, minutes for April 24th and April 29th.
I'll move to approve the minutes from April 24th and April 29th.
And I'll second that motion.
Motion been made, second to approve minutes of April 24th and April 29th, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same, motion carries.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yeah,
Why are they not in the paper anymore? She extended her deadline a day so that everything would be better, and we haven't seen minutes since March 4th.
Shirley, they have been sent to her, you'll have to ask her. They have been sent to us.
Now I've asked both parties, so somewhere we better get together.
And those are sent via email, correct?
Correct.
So that there's a record.
so we'll put a little bit of mail here, let's see, this is a letter from Val Hornsville District Court requesting that we approve the hiring of a person for the district court for 24 hours a week to replace Janea when Janea leaves. Payroll claims in the amount of $174,818.57.
I'll move that we pay the payroll claims and set them out.
I'll second that motion.
Motion been made, second to pay payroll claims and set them out, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. Claims in the amount of $12,600.71.
I'll move we pay the approved claims in the amount of $12,671.
And I'll second the motion.
Motion been made and second to pay claims and set amount, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, same. Motion carries. A receipt for restitution from Bill Flannery in the amount of $1,032.52. Redwater County HANS alert from the Department of Health for the increased risk of synthetic cathinones in Montana, commonly known as bath salts. Montana Business Assistance Connection report for the first quarter ended March 31st, 2019. Broward County Fund, revolving fund. This is the Noxious Weed Trust Fund Project contract. The question that I had on the prevailing wage was that they don't pay prevailing wage because this is the farmers and ranchers do the spraying themselves, so there's no contracting involved. We need a motion to sign said agreement. This agreement has been signed by the weed board and by Jessica Bushnell.
I would move that we concur and sign. That's a good project.
Is there a second?
Yeah, second.
Motion has been made, seconded to sign the Noxious Weed Trust Fund Project grant agreement. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion carries. couple of magazines here, S&S and Rural Montana magazines.
And this mail was hand-delivered to us by Mary Ellen. That's for the local advisory council. And it's an agreement, it doesn't cost us any money. But it's an agreement for the Mental Health Local Advisory Council to use the little house next to the Alliance Bible Church for their meetings, peer reviews, peer assistance, the work that Melinda's doing, and other social events.
Okay.
And I would move that we sign this agreement. I think it's been a really good place for everybody to meet.
Is that something we need to put on next week's agenda?
It's on the consent agenda, but if you guys want it on the regular agenda, we can certainly do that. There's no expenditure of funds, so it can go either way. But yeah, let's just be safe rather than sorry. And
On the agenda for
Yeah.
next week. I guess we can go ahead with the commissioner's update. Let's see, I attended the hospital board meeting, the Black Butte DEQ meeting in White Sulphur, and union mediation and some personal evaluations. The Black Butte meeting in White Sulphur was a pretty good meeting. Everyone that was there that spoke was in favor of the project. Most people were from White Sulphur. They didn't hear any opposition whatsoever from anyone, so we don't know where they're at, but hopefully it'll move ahead. So that's pretty much all I have.
I attended union negotiations as well, and then also the emergency services meeting in Three Forks, which basically is comprised of all the emergency service responders down there, fire, EMS. And they're good meetings. There's a lot of good things that are coming out, and something that we'll probably talk about maybe at the end of our regular meeting today is Copper City, how that has just exploded, and I think the challenge that we see in the future with that. So we'll talk about more about that.
sounds good.
Yeah.
I attended the same meetings as you guys did, the personnel evaluations. I think those are going really well. I'm really excited about that. And then also the union negotiation went very well also. And then just a number of community meetings this week. This little county is motoring forward, and there's some excitement out there that's energizing and inspiring. Also this week was the Do the Right Thing celebration, and it's Do the Right Thing, WRITE. Kids across the state write essays about their experience with violence, with bullying, with what they see through their lens of what's going on around them in the area of youth violence. And all the essays are judged by a variety of people around the state. The top 10 read their essays and then have a luncheon at Exploration Works in Helena. And then the top boy and the top girl get a trip with their parents to Washington, D.C. It is paid for by the grant. And in past years, they have read their essays at the Library of Congress, on the floor of the Senate, in front of the Supreme Court. So it's a big deal.
Sounds cool.
And we have over 400 applicants, I believe, this year. I don't remember the exact number. But great program, and pretty humbling stories.
It's going to be kind of a tough judging process there.
Very tough, very tough. I did share one essay with you guys,
Yep.
got a flavor for what these kids see and their perspective on these things. That's all from me.
Okay. Move on to our 10:15, Scott Lester, Blackfoot Communications, phone bill charges, internet contract.
Good morning, Commissioners.
Good morning.
So I received a call and email, can I sit down?
Yes.
From Daryl regarding our concerns that folks were having over changes or charges at, from the billing from Blackfoot. So I asked Daryl for a description of what those concerns were, so I could respond to those in some detail. And he provided that to me. He also followed up with an email inquiring about provision in the contract that we have with Broadwater County, and I'll speak to that as well. So the best way I thought to go about this was just to kind of go down through the email that was provided and address kind of point by point what was brought up, and then hopefully we can, when we get through all this, we can answer any additional questions or any additional detail as it relates, can be clarified as we go through it. So, yeah. So, it started out by saying, and I don't know who exactly drafted this here at the county, but I would assume that it's someone in the billing department, probably accounts payable is my guess. I know very little about the changes we were to expect when we switched our phone and internet service over to Blackfoot. The accounting and finance office has asked repeatedly for cost structure for planning purposes since the beginning of this whole process and has received nothing in response. What I would say is we don't have any correspondence at Blackfoot, either through our billing department, through our customer service reps, or through the project coordinator, requesting information about billing where somebody was denied. So I'm not sure if this question was directed internally here at Broadwater County, but if it was speaking to Blackfoot, we were, I think, happy to answer any questions, but we don't have any record that questions were asked or emails were sent that were not responded to. So we kind of drew a blank internally when we researched that one.
Okay. Deb, do you want to speak to that? Did we receive information that we requested?
We asked the commissioners when this project started a year and a half ago. And we never got anything. We just saw work being done. We never saw contracts to address costs, phases, anything of that nature.
Okay.
Don't know where the disconnect started,
All right.
but we're at the receiving end now, so now we have questions.
Okay, very good.
Okay. All of us were told that it was not going to cost us more. With that being said, I was shocked when we received our first bill, and it was substantially higher than we had with our previous service. So what I would say to that is, and then they went on to say that our previous cost for service and internet was roughly $2,250 to $2,300 a month. What I would say to that is, I have a copy of all of the county's bills dated roughly March 2017. I don't have anything more current. We don't normally collect bills from you guys, more than once. So if changes were made between then and now, I don't have access to those changes. Our initial proposal of services was to cost less. It was to actually be kind of an apples to apples comparison, and we provided this kind of apples to apples comparison back in 2017, earlier in the year, based off of this billing, and there was savings. There was savings if you go to the right hand column over those bills. However, there was some correspondence that took place later that summer in 2017 where the Broadwater County Commissioners requested faster speeds. And this was the letter from the Commissioners requesting the faster speeds, in which case you had roughly a 20 by 20 circuit, and we quoted a 50 by 50 circuit, and you requested the faster speeds in this letter, and so we responded to this letter with that we'll quote 100 by 100, which is roughly five times what you had before, and exactly what the cost would be for that. So at no point did we say we're gonna offer these faster speeds at the same price. We said the faster speeds are going to cost more money. So your bandwidth went up to 100 by 100 approximately. However, in an additional review of your bills, because we still have them on file here, so we're able to kind of go through them with a fine tooth comb. We found a total of $3,800 total in spending. You have 1, 2, 3, 4 CenturyLink bills, and then you have a ClearFly phone service bill for $1,738. So it did actually an updated version of this after we poured through all the bills. And what I found was we're actually technically still saving you money based off of our accounting of what you have. Now, we shouldn't have been saving you money because when you upgraded to the faster circuit, it increased the cost. And by the first accounting, it should have increased your spend. But by this accounting, you should still be saving a little bit of money. Now, if we go back to the reason we came to the Broadwater County specifically as a customer, we came here because we needed the county's business in order to justify coming to this market. And there are lots of organizations that are saving significant amounts of money, or they're getting significantly higher services that they weren't getting, they weren't able to get otherwise. I think the hospital came in and testified that they were going to save upwards of $30,000 a year. I know that Montana Hydraulics would not be functioning right now if they didn't have a high-speed circuit outside of town. So that was really what was driving it, and we wanted it to be a win-win for the county as well. Are there any questions about those cost comparisons or kind of what we came up with?
I have some, if I may, Mr. Chairman. So what you said was that we, first of all, in the letter, that was talking about internet, not the phones. So the issue we have is with the phones. We aren't exactly at apples to apples, but with your cost comparison, even the 2.5% increase in cost that you quoted us, when you look at the internet charges, that is the smallest charge on here. It's the phone service that is so much higher. The quote is low, but the actual billing is quite a bit higher. So what I would like to do is perhaps divide out internet from phones, because there really are two issues here. Yes, we agreed to pay more for internet to help provide that service for our community. And I think it's pretty clear that the reason we have higher speed internet here is because Blackfoot came in. We didn't know that there was a hardwire from CenturyLink because they didn't tell us, they didn't answer the questions to let us know it was there. You guys came in and kind of opened the doors to that, which is great. Mm-hmm. Internet is not the issue. What is the issue is the phones are far higher than we were led to believe or than we expected. So I would like to maybe just deal with the phones so that we can just keep this on the subject that we have an issue with. And I don't think it's fair to say that the cost of the phones went up because we asked for more bandwidth with the internet. I think the two are, again, two separate things, and that's the other reason I'd like to keep it separate so that we can just focus on where the issue is.
Okay. Well,
Thank you.
I'll do my best to do that. Please keep in mind that the way that Blackfoot bundles services is we bundle services. So to some extent, to say, well, the phone charges are completely separate than the internet, when we're bringing all the services across some of the same circuits, there's some shared cost going on there. So it's difficult to say apples to apples. But I think if you look at apples to apples with the phone services, you're going to see some savings as well there. Because overall, you guys have savings. By my calculations, our calculations, you guys have some savings overall. So you were paying ClearFly $1,700 a month. We took over those services. in addition to the voice services from CenturyLink.
So can you tell us what that is then? If we were planning ClearFi 17, how much are we paying you for phone service?
For the apples to apples PRI service that you are paying for ClearFly, or that you were paying from ClearFly, it is a bundled charge on this bill, but if you take the contract amount out for the circuit costs and the internet, so it's this bundled charge of $16.93, which includes all the ClearFly services and the internet circuit. So the $16.93, $1,693 replaces the ClearFly charge of roughly $1,700. What is it? I'm sorry on that. What does it say on here?
1738.
$17.38 plus the internet circuit. So if you back out the internet circuit, it is $1,693.25 minus $948. Which is $745.25 comparatively. So those are digital voice services that you were paying ClearFly, and it's roughly $1,000 cheaper a month for those voice services.
Oh.
This is the bill from ClearFly.
Can I say something? Hi, I'm Terry Baldus with the Connect Group.
Sure.
I analyzed both of the bills for you,
Okay.
and what I found was that the fax line went from $39.95 up to $55. That was one of the increases that you're seeing.
Okay.
And the other increase you're seeing, you received free long distance. Previously, you're now being charged for long distance. And I have my documentation if you'd like to see it. And also the T1 that you're referring to and the DSL, both of those were just dedicated circuits for voice. They were not used for their data except for the DSL over at the health department. That was used for both.
Okay.
So that's just a little explanation of the cost that I saw. Mike had asked me to review the two bills, and I do have an analysis. And if you'd like me to, I'd be happy to look at the other bills, the Montana Internet and the CenturyLink, and add those to my audit sheet, so you can actually see the difference, if you'd like me to. My job is to be your customer advocate, and that's a free service that we offer since you are a partner. So I do have that info if you'd like it.
Thank you, Terry. I would like that. I'd like to have the compare and contrast.
Okay?
Thank you.
And I can work with Scott and his department in breaking down exactly what was there and what the difference is. Our audit sheets do show that.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry to interrupt.
Sure. So what I can say is this. We provided a contract that was based off of this analysis of this billing that we believe matched services to the best of our ability with the services that you were being billed for. We can only provide a certain amount. This is the only diligence that we had to say that this is the billing, that these are the services that you had. Now, when we went to implement services, we implemented services based off of what we're being used. So I'm going to kind of go down this letter and continue to read this off. So this does not include internet for DES, road, and health department. This is an increase of $500 a month. I don't know if that's the case. So there was a breakdown of several different circuits or several different services throughout the county where they said that they were being billed more per individual place. Well, we didn't ever say, okay, well, we're going to bill every single department less. We said, here's what our billing is, here's what we're going to bill per location. It's in the contract. We believe the contract is a better value than what you have now. You have roughly 10 times the internet that you had before, or 5 times depending on whether or not you had 10 meg or 20 meg, and I'm not 100% clear on that. Now you have 100 meg. We believe that this is a better value, but we weren't trying to at any point solve for, and I don't have any correspondence, we were trying to solve for each individual department having a savings. So if that didn't occur, then that is an internal issue. So it said we were not charged separately for fax lines before. I do not understand why this is included in the bundled bill. This is not how we bill. So I guess what I would say is we are charging per department as it's listed in the contract. The next point was we are also getting charged for lines that are not in use either. So I went through this in detail with our project coordinator, and she's available by phone here if we need to bring her in. But what she said was that the lines that are being charged for were lines that were in use. She worked closely with Mike and the Connect group to cut over lines that were in use and services that were in use or that were on the contract. There were some services that we did not cut over because it was deemed that they were not in use. For example, she provided this accounting of what the contract called for in terms of billing, and then what we did not actually turn up and start billing. So the extension office was closed down per Mike Delger. We did not bill for that. One analog line was deleted from solid waste. There was there's a voice call path terminated at the Fairgrounds Emergency Operations Center. One error that we did catch in your billing is that we had 2 circuits at the fairgrounds that were to turn up, 2 internet circuits. One was canceled along with this voice call path. It was the commercial building, and so we canceled the commercial building, and as a result, it overbilled. It billed $150 for both locations at the fairgrounds instead of $75. That correction's been made in the system. It's been backdated to the beginning of the contract, so that's been resolved. You'll see it on your next bill that you're only being billed for the 1 circuit at the fairgrounds. There was an analog line at the city road shop that was not turned up. Voice trunk call path at the road department that was not turned up. There were analog lines at the sheriff's department that were not turned up. There were additional lines, part of the voice bundle, that were not turned up. So I have a complete list of all the services that were not turned up as a result of this implementation, and the total is $765 a month in services that we're not billing for, that we had on the contract that we were to bill for. Now, some of those services were deemed, by all the technical people working together to not be necessary or to not make sense to cut them over. Broadwater County was better off keeping those services where they were at, or that they were not services in use and to not turn them on. And so we were flexible in the implementation of this project to say, okay, the contract said what we thought were the services that you wanted, but what we're gonna do is turn up the services that you need. So it was a bit of a surprise to our project manager to hear this accusation that there were services turned up that were not in use, because she felt like she had worked very closely with the Connect Group and Mike here at the county to only turn up services that are in use. Please keep in mind, we have a contract for $3,500 a month that we planned on billing for, but because in working with your technical folks, we came to the conclusion that those services either didn't need to be turned up or were better off left where they were at. We're billing significantly less, and that was to be part of our return on investment for coming to this market and making the investment that we did. So I guess just like to say that I believe, operated in good faith by working with your technical staff to turn up services that were in use, that were needed, not turn up services that were not needed, and to be somewhat flexible in the implementation of this contract.
So what's he not even billing now?
So we are, according to this, we're to be billing $2,798.25 a month.
So if I may, Mike, DES, if there is an additional $150 a month, are you saying that that will be cut in half? Because a lot of that is for the emergency command center.
Yes.
So yes, that will be at 75 now instead of $150
It will.
additional per month.
It will, because we originally were planning on billing 150 there, and we terminated one circuit. It just got missed during implementation to not bill for it, and so they were billing for both circuits when they should have only been billing for one. So,
Okay. As far as I think there's been a lot of problems. I know there's been a lot of problems from the beginning. Communication, we can talk about that. Implementation, your investigation of what we have and how to work with that. But I guess we could have a back and forth of what the problems are, but I think I'm more interested in what the solutions are.
Sure.
So we have a list of the increased charges. Now, I'm not sure where the savings are, because we have almost every department listed that's getting an increase. And it looks like an average of about $50 a month more. It's probably a low, but it's just a guesstimate at this point, just from looking at the numbers. Can we get these decreased to at least what we were paying previously, rather than the additional roughly $500 a month? Is there any wiggle room you have to work with us on the pricing structure that does appear for phones to be so much higher?
I have the ability to move things around.
Okay,
So if that would help you, I can bill you less for some departments and more for other services, as long as they're all in the same contract and they all have the same contract term.
which would not be something that I don't think we could pass off one department's cost to another department. I just don't think that's good management. But for some of our departments to come up with an additional $75 a month like DES, that's a pretty tough lift for them. So that's something we'll have to look at. And I'm glad Terry's here. With the beginning of this project, one of the complaints, and I agree with our accounting staff on the lack of communication. You and I had an email where I'd asked for some communication, and you said, well, I have been communicating, but you just hadn't been communicating with all of us. So communication got lost. So we didn't realize some of the problems until we get here to this point and start getting these bills that are so much higher than we expected. So my question is, with the fact that you had written a contract based on assumptions of what we had, didn't do an investigation into what we actually had so that you could come back to us, is there any negotiation room to go back to the original numbers that you had? Because that is essentially Blackfoot's error, not Broadwater County's. Is there any negotiation room there?
So we are already billing $700 less than we forecasted. So we took a lot of services off of there that you guys, that was deemed necessary for you guys to have. I would say that I don't think I can get anything done in terms of reducing the charges across the board. What I don't understand is with all the pricing itemized out on the contract for the specific locations, those are the prices that are being billed. If a service was taken off, then the line was drawn through the contract. You know, it was taken right off. The service was taken right off the contract. I don't understand how Broadwater County, I don't understand how your departments didn't understand that we're going to be billed this amount for this service. I mean, the contracts were provided, they were negotiated. We provided a final agreement, you know, in March of last year that we were going to implement. And we were very flexible in implementing that agreement in the sense that we're billing substantially less than what we planned. And this goes against our business plan, which was a darn near break even to come to the county. And yet we worked with you guys to try to implement what you needed and what you didn't. I don't understand how at this point in the process you guys are coming to the conclusion that now the departments are being billed more, even though it was written on the contract, and we're expected to reduce our billing, or being asked to reduce our billing.
You had mentioned that we can't really do an apples to apples, and yet your comparison does say apples to apples at the top. The 700 appears to be the CenturyLink issue with 911, where we had to leave that in CenturyLink because Blackfoot couldn't provide that service in a manner that is consistent and reliable.
It was deemed to be in the best interest of the county to leave
Right.
that service with you guys.
And I see that here at the 699. So, you know, I think we're all on the same page as far as making sure that we have the most reliable service, regardless of who it is that's providing it for, especially 911. So I guess what I would ask for, Mr. Chairman, we have the documentation in front of us from accounting. They are the most knowledgeable. I guess I would ask if Terry has anything more to add, and I know this is a blindside because
No,
I apologize for that.
Yeah, no, I'm here to help, and I do have to admit that Blackfoot, we worked as a team in going through everything, and they're very easy to work with. I just think the problem was we were brought in after the fact, so we could have helped do the investigation before that. And what I would like to do is similar, and I can agree with you, this is all I received. This was the Clearfly bill, and when he was referring to the 1783, you know, a lot of that is the taxes, the E91. So if we just compare apples to apples, that would be 1,568, and that would be for the 23 voice channels, all of the analog fax lines, and of course the long distance. So I kind of did a sheet of that, and then I took their most recent bill and I started looking at it, and that's where I found the discrepancies was the $39.95. And to be honest with you, you've got like 16 of the lines, so 16 times the difference between 39 and 55. That's where I think a lot of it is, and also the cost of long distance. But I'd be happy to do an audit sheet for what the forms that Scott originally had and do a line item for you and actually go through and see what, you know, where the differences are. If you'd like for me to do that, I'd be more than happy to do that for you.
I would, just because we need to know. So I appreciate that, Terry, thank
I'd be
you.
happy to.
And then the only other thing, Scott, one of the things I think we need to figure out is how Blackfoot works with Broadwater County. Mike, do you want to speak on this, or would you like me to?
Go ahead.
So I understand from our maintenance department that since December, they have been working between 4 and 10 hours a week on Blackfoot's transition, even though they were not paid for that time, they are not a Blackfoot employee. Fast forward to just the most recent, and that was the subject of that email that you and I shared. We had an issue with the phones. We have some phones that are cutting out. And our road department was down, apparently a week ago, called Blackfoot, and apparently a technician called and told Mike, our maintenance supervisor, you need to go and check that out. He said, no, this is Blackfoot's phones, you need to figure out what's going on. And they said, well, we will be there next Monday. Well, when the phones go down, they need that work done today. The same thing with WIC. They called and said they had an issue with their phone, but there was no follow-up from Blackfoot. So I think we need to figure out how Blackfoot is going to respond to those emergencies, especially just at this early transition point. And I think we commissioners need to solidify that our maintenance staff is not your contractor, and so how do we work together and make that work? And I know he's been very gracious in what he has done so far in working with both Connect Group and Blackfoot.
Okay, I'll speak to the two issues separately. First, with Mike's cooperation, according to my project manager, he was extremely helpful and extremely instrumental in helping us figure out what services are needed and not needed. And so that's why she has some certainty that there's a degree of accuracy to the services that we implemented, that they're the ones that you guys are using and need. We have to have somebody that we interface with internally here. We can't come and implement services without the cooperation of a human being that works for Broadwater County. That is the industry standard, it's the norm, it's how we work with every enterprise customer. Whether it's the hospital across the street, who have 3 people that we work with to help implement services, or a small business here in town with one employee and owner who works with us to implement the services. There's a degree of setting it up the way you need it, and we have to have some cooperation and coordination. So there is some work required internally on the part of your organization to work with Blackfoot. Now, I would like to speak to the fact that, I really, truly believe that the county as an organization would have never come to Blackfoot and asked for this change. You wouldn't have taken advantage of it had we come to the market. Because as far as working with your employees and your other service providers, you guys were all set. Everything was fine. It wasn't broke, so let's not fix it. But the reason we asked the county to switch to us was not to get you 10 times the bandwidth because you absolutely had to have it. It was because we needed your business to make coming to this market make sense. So I appreciate the fact that this has been, for lack of a better word, a headache for not just the commissioners but the employees here at the county having to work on something that people didn't absolutely have to have. If your phones didn't work and your services were down, then I would certainly you would be very motivated to make a change, but your services were working. I will point out that when CenturyLink had their 3-day outage over Christmas, or just a few days before Christmas this year, all the customers in Broadwater County that we had cut up by that time and were on our service stayed up that entire time and did not have an outage. To speak to the two issues where you have phones that were down, I don't know, first of all, if they were phones that weren't working, because we did not supply phones or handsets, hardware, hand phones. We provide the phone lines, or the phone lines that were down. Now, I haven't had a chance to even investigate what you're asking me about, so I wasn't aware of it, did not know about it. I can say that our TAC, our Technical Assistance Center, takes these calls, they register them, and they have, they have metrics that they're trying to meet that are, good customer service and timely responsiveness. So I guess I'm not sure what happened in those situations, whether it was handset related or it was phone line related. But just to be clear, we're responsible for the phone lines, not the handsets.
Yes.
I do have an update on it. We've been working with Trevor.
Okay.
And what the issue is, you don't see all of our bills because you pay one flat rate and you get unlimited from us. So what the issue is, Steve and Trevor has determined, it's something, and I am not a technician, but it's called tagging, which means in the locations that were down, the health department and the road department, it was the internet and the connection to the static IP address. It's called tagging. So I know Trevor is working on that, so it was not phones or the phone system was down. It was the internet connection to the remote sites.
Okay,
So-
voice tagging was responsible.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, that might not be the case.
Okay.
Because we were just over there while
Oh,
you were
yeah,
waiting here,
that's it.
and that may not be the problem. We've had problems with the health department from day one. And there's a problem there. Now, I had a long conversation with Trevor about 2 hours ago.
Trevor from Blackfoot.
Yeah.
So
I've been asking for them to come out here. There's something wrong, and they haven't been coming out. And it's been going on for about a month.
okay.
So the phones here and the lines here are working fine. It's just the internet where the remote IP phones are.
Right.
That seems to be the issue.
Then I just had a complaint. I was over in control, and they've been having the same problems for about 2 or 3 weeks. They didn't bother to tell me, and that they're having lines cut out. They can't hear what people are saying on the other end. And I just reported, because Trevor just called me about 10 o'clock when I was over there, and I told him, and then I handed the phone off to him on that one too. So there is a problem with their system,
Okay.
so.
Is it all managed out of the PBX here in the building? Is all the IP handed off at the
Yes.
PBX and then it goes out
Yes.
to the other phones back through the internet?
Yep, through your internet connection.
Okay.
And that's previously how we had it, but they were dedicated. It was like an MPLS
Yeah.
previously.
Right.
So, and that's the way they worked previously.
Okay.
Yep.
Yes, for-
So it's possible, I can tell you, I haven't done a good job of reporting this, and it's possible that others in the building haven't. So we've had a couple of times when phones were dead, and one day I had to file something in court, and our internet was down. I was getting worried like, oh, I'm in trouble here, but it came back up around 4 PM, so we got it done that day. But it's one of those things where we didn't report it to anybody, didn't do a good job of that. It's been in the last month. So it's possible others have had that experience, but weren't, like me, weren't alerted to the fact that I should notify somebody right away. But it hasn't been like this chronic thing. It's happened a couple of times. So it makes me realize that maybe there's, if dispatch is seeing that, maybe there are some things in the building that we're just not doing a good job of letting you guys know about.
So if I provided an email to you, to the commissioners that said, in the event of a service issue relating to your voice or data services, please call this phone number, Blackfoot, and register this as a complaint, then we can start to get a picture if there's something wrong with the network or there's something wrong with a specific phone that we can address. I can tell you that I work with our technical assistance folks all the time. They're really committed to taking care of customers and getting issues resolved. Our most important score as a company is our customer service satisfaction score. It's how we measure our success as a company. And it's something that we invest in and take seriously. And so I want these issues to be resolved. It sounds like our technicians are in communication. If you'd like them to come out and they haven't, it's maybe because they are trying to remote diagnose, I don't know, but I can find out.
Yeah, what they do is they remote diagnosed, and then, not our problem. And then I finally got pissed, And then they started, Ian showed up today,
Ian showed up today.
yes, cause I finally had enough.
Yeah.
I need to have it fixed, no more playing games.
So he's diagnosing it right now.
No, he left, and Trevor's now gonna work on it.
Okay.
And Mike needs to be in the loop, no question about it. We've never said we don't want you working with Mike.
Mhm.
4 to 10 hours per week since last December, I think that's over and above. That should have been Blackfoot. So that was the point I was making when you said that, you know, you have to have somebody to talk to. Yes, of course you do. And we absolutely appreciate that, support that. And we want this to work. But I do feel that Broadwater County was taken advantage of with the number of hours over that 4-month span. That's an awful lot of time on our staff to be doing Blackfoot work. So that was my issue with that. So please don't misunderstand that we don't want to be in the loop and that we don't want you working with our folks, because we absolutely do. It's essential.
Mm-hmm.
And our focus has to be on fixing these issues so that we can make this work, because this is the reality that we're in.
I would agree. We feel the same way. We would like to make it work. And if there's issues, we want to resolve them. The last thing that my TAC supervisor wants is for somebody to go to his boss or the vice president of sales or account manager to say they're not getting taken care of. He wants to take care of people and get the issues resolved if there's issues. So this is the first I've heard of it. There's nothing in the letter about service issues, so let's make sure that he's getting good information and they're getting good information, and there's a coordinated effort to take care of you guys. I honestly can't speak to the implementation time that Mike spent. I can say that it is always work on every customer's part to switch providers. There's work that needs to be done, and there were changes in the services that needed to take place, and there was diagnosis that needed to take place that might have happened before we entered into this agreement. This agreement was, quite honestly, more of a political decision than a technical decision initially. And we didn't have a lot of information to diagnose. We didn't even have access to fully diagnose everything that you guys had. We had bills to go off of. That was the information that we had. And then it became a long-term discussion. It took over a year about whether or not the county would switch their services to Blackfoot. So we did not go into the detail of diagnosing everything that was going on here that we would have normally done because of the nature of the conversations.
I would suggest in the future maybe to do that due diligence so that there is additional credibility to the entire process.
Sure. I think that's an excellent idea. And that's our normal process.
Terry or Mike, is there anything more we should be asking that we don't have the expertise to know to ask at this
I
point?
think the most important thing is as close as possible, is, so you have the knowledge, is to sit down and do an apples to apples. And if I could get copies of all of those bills, I will be more than happy to. And